How's it going, Stephanie?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. How was your day?
It was good.
Busy.
Busy.
Excellent. How about
How about
you?
yours?
Same. Busy.
Busy.
That's kind of the usual. That's okay.
Yeah. Good.
What else is new in the world?
We started our remodeling project, so our house is an absolute disaster.
Are you guys doing it, or are you guys having somebody else do it?
We're having somebody else do it.
Oh, okay, awesome. What all are you redoing on it?
So we're moving our kitchen to the middle of the house.
Okay.
So we're tearing out the kitchen and we're putting my husband's office in there and taking out five doors and five walls. Yeah, it's a big project.
Goodness gracious. Well, that'll be awesome, though.
Yeah, it will be fun when we're done.
Good. Yes, when you're done. Well, good deal.
Yeah. But Mark, he's pretty amazing. So he sold our kitchen.
Oh, the cabinets and stuff? Good for you. That's awesome.
So he got cash and then he had people come in and just take it out so he didn't have to pay to have it.
It's like a double win.
Genius.
Anyway,
Sorry.
Well, people love, some of that used stuff sometimes too, so that's awesome.
I know.
Good for you.
Wasn't me.
That's all right. Here, let me admit some of these people. Well, there's 3 on here. They're all muted. We got 2 more minutes.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Kim.
Cool. Should be a couple more.
So, any feedback? Anything from all the homework?
I did watch all 3 of the videos, and I thought Dr. Fung was the best.
Wow, good.
I really felt that he did a much better job explaining the intermittent fasting and being able to understand what you were doing and what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you fell off of it, right, that you just go back on it once you were done, right?
Mm-hmm. Good.
The other gentleman, Dr. No, his name is Pellin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Isn't it pollen?
Yeah. He had a couple of really good things, but theirs was so much more scientific and so much detail. It was like, wow. So, but he had a couple good things, like if you want cream in your coffee, have cream in your coffee. It's not really going to hurt your fasting, right? So it was like that. So I have been able to do 16-8.
Wow, good job.
Yeah. I'm starving by the time I get to 16, but I am doing 16-8. So that's good. And I really haven't minded it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hi, Hannah. We're just kind of talking about what's been going on this week. So, anybody else want to share?
Yes, I have some comments to make. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So last week, with all of the talk, I think that I figured something out. So I think that I use negativity towards myself, which motivates me to become disciplined. And you were saying, well, we should have kind thoughts about ourselves. But to me, it seems like it works to be negative towards yourself because that will motivate, to start working out, to take the weight off. Because if I'm not upset with myself, I'm just going to keep eating. So anyway, I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Okay. So how's it working? Are you motivated and at your goal weight?
pounds. Yeah.
You are, by being negative to yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought, well, to go buy new clothes is like rewarding bad behavior. And so I wanted right?
So it's not going to work. I mean, if it's working, it's not good to be that way, but it's not going to work forever. And you usually hit a point where you're just like, you just don't want to be that way to yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so and you think you were just as negative this last week as you've been in the past?
Oh, what do I want to say? I think that I'm angry with myself for just packing on all this weight.
Oh, okay.
And so, you were saying, you shouldn't. I don't know that I'm talking negative. I feel like because I'm angry with myself, it motivates me to get disciplined and to take weight off.
Okay. Okay. Because I don't think it's a good solution. I mean, I think if we delve into that, you're going to find that it's really not working for you. I mean, yes, you're having short-term results, but it's not something that you'll be able to do in the long run for yourself, because you have to have your own back. Otherwise, you're going to keep going up and down, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. I couldn't. Go ahead.
Okay.
Did you say something?
No, so you were saying so somehow positive thoughts are supposed to work in that way?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, just loving yourself and accepting yourself, because by being mean, and that's something that we usually learn when we're very little, and we don't even realize we learned it when we're somewhere between about a year and 6 years, because of whatever the situation was in our household. And so we're just perpetuating that all the time. And so we think if we're the angriest with ourselves, then nobody else can be angrier at ourselves. Does that make sense?
I don't think that I totally get it yet.
Okay.
But we're probably going to cover more in that area.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to kind of go over the model and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I made a note about Kim being angry with herself.
A note? Okay.
I might come back to you.
Oh dear. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Brenda or Hannah? How did this week go?
I found, like, looking at like the reasons behind and the feelings behind like cravings and the way that I eat was kind of eye-opening for me this week. Like when I did have a craving, to stop myself and say, wait, why am I having this craving? What am I feeling behind that craving? What was I doing or thinking about leading up to that? Because food has always been, for any emotion, if I'm happy, let's celebrate with food. If I'm mad, let's turn to food. And it's always been a crutch and a coping mechanism. Turn to food for comfort, or turn to food to celebrate and reward yourself with food. So just stopping myself this week, especially Sunday, for whatever reason, was a hard day as far as cravings. I did great all week, and then Sunday I was like, oh my God, I want to eat everything. And it's like, well, time out. Just making myself stop and think about it a little bit was kind of eye-opening, because in that time that it took me to stop and think about what it was that was going on, the craving passed, and I was like, okay, well, moving on. It's like the worst thing I had in that moment was a protein bar. I think that's pretty darn good, all things considered. So that was very eye-opening. And then just thinking about why I eat the way that I do and kind of where that started, and realizing that this is something that I learned as a child, and I never learned how to make those right choices. I grew up in a very much bread and butter house, and everything came from a can, and everything was processed. There was, that I never learned how to take care of my body. I never learned how to be positive about my body. I never learned to compliment myself, to accept myself. There was always so much negativity surrounding my weight and the way that I ate, that it's just so ingrained in me from childhood that learning to stop myself every time I have negative thoughts when I, when I look in the mirror and I see that 300-pound person, or when I look in the mirror and all I want to see is my flaws, stopping myself and saying, no, let's find something good here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good for you. You should be proud of yourself because you worked through an urge and a craving and you came out on the other side and you had eaten a protein bar, but you didn't you used terms like you want to eat everything, and you didn't do that.
Nope.
You ate a protein bar. And do you know how long did that craving last, do you think, if you could?
it was on Sunday, I felt like I had cravings off and on kind of all day. And I don't know if it was just, that's always been kind of the cheat day, or, if we're going to go out and do something, that's usually when it was, or I don't know. It's the end of the week. So it's like, you've been good all week. It's time for that reward kind of feeling that's kind of in the back of my mind. I don't know if that's what it was, or if it just one of those things that just that day, for whatever reason, I had them off and on all day, but I survived.
Yes. Good.
I
Hannah?
feel like I
go ahead.
just in doing that and working through that and trying to force myself to, like, when I feel negative about myself, forcing myself to find something positive in that moment, I feel like my outlook has been a lot better this week, and I haven't been nearly as negative in general this week. I feel like just by being more conscious of when I go into that cycle of negative self-talk, because I'm very guilty of like getting in that cycle and my brain just runs this broken record in my head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens constantly unless I realize it's happening and learn to stop myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want you to start to kind of think about those words that you use, because you use a lot of absolute words, like always. I mean, you're very black and white, and it's not the case anymore.
Right.
You're not always negative, because you said there's times that you notice and you've been more positive. So just to really kind of slow down and think about those absolute words that you're using is what's going to happen over time. And I don't expect perfection. There's no such thing as perfection. So don't worry about that. But you're still using this self-talk that's kind of negative. And I just wanting to point that out to you. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Hannah?
I think with like writing down the thoughts and stuff, I realized like how negatively I talk and think about myself without even realizing it. Like even from the moment I get up, it's like these constant negative thoughts about myself running through my head, and I felt like it was like my normal, or like that is my normal, because I wasn't even aware of it. So writing it down and realizing that those are the things that the majority of the time are going through my head made me really aware to like try to be more conscious of my thoughts and try to change it. But it definitely made me realize how much of it was negative that like I said was just my normal that I didn't realize before.
Mm-hmm. And you're very normal, because that's normal.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
60,000 thoughts we have, and they're mostly negative and mean.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's very true.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening to do that and realize that it's easy to get down on yourself, but it's a lot harder to give yourself credit when you do something positive or accomplish something. And so I've tried to kind of, if I even like little things, like if I not necessarily weight, but even if I was able to like maybe lift a heavier weight at the gym or something like that, try to like, okay, you did this, give yourself something positive to think about instead of just bombarding myself with negative thoughts all the time.
Wow, that's great. Good job.
Yeah.
And then Kayla, I don't know if maybe you're not in a place you can talk. I want to give you that opportunity if you want it.
I don't know
No?
if she can hear us or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I wanted to go back and talk again about the motivational triads, just because this is kind of a weird thing. And I wanted to reinforce it because maybe it's been forgotten, because it's hard to always remember this. And so this is what our brain wants to do constantly, is it wants to expend the least amount of energy possible. It wants to seek pleasure, and it wants to avoid pain. That's what our brain is always trying to do. And we want to avoid pain more than seek pleasure. Most important thing that our brain wants to do is avoid pain. And if you've ever listened to any Tony Robbins, he talks about this constantly, that when you're trying to change anything in your life, your body is trying to avoid pain. So what Hannah was talking about, she lifted a heavier weight. That's something that she had to think about consciously to do something, because her brain doesn't want to do that. All of us are like this. And I just want you to kind of think about that. Okay. So it sounds like there have been some thought downloads you guys have done this week. Is that true? Yeah. And if you want to type stuff in the chat, if you don't want to be the person you have a question and you don't really want anybody to know that you're asking it, you can just type questions in the chat, and we, as we have time, we can answer those questions, just so you know that. So that's, I can see that thought downloads have happened, and there's more work to be done, because I'm not as clear as I should be with what I've presented so far. So we'll work on that. Looks like we had some insights. I'm just kind of going over what I heard in the homework. And it sounds like people are starting to have new thoughts. And I had kind of an interesting thing happen that it made me think about you guys and what I'm talking to you about. And it was with my granddaughter, who's just 2. And I was watching her, and she was sitting on a chair eating food, and she's just eating with her hands, and she dropped food on the floor, and she didn't mean to. And immediately she looked at me, because she had a look like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and felt bad about it. And I thought, oh my gosh, even that young, we're looking for that negative feedback from people around us. And it made me really know that I had to have a smile on my face and not react to it, because it doesn't matter. It's like, I can clean that up later. It doesn't matter. So I just thought that was fascinating, because it's like, where did that come from? And so that's how far back we have to think about going. And I don't know if you know who Mel Robbins is. She did the 5-4-3-2-1 program. She wrote a book about it. She changed her life by just doing this 5-4-3-2-1 and then getting herself into action. And she talked about a lot of times when we are at home, let's say, and back when we were children, maybe our parents came home at 5 o'clock and they didn't have the best relationship and they might have bickered. We will do things even as adults to compensate for what used to happen at 5 o'clock when we were little tiny kids. And we have to kind of think about that and be present with it and know that that's something that we can absolutely change. And so in my household, food was a reward. And if my mom was an excellent cook and made a lot of sweets. And if there was cake, we could eat cake for breakfast. It didn't matter. Put milk on your cake. So it's kind of healthy, like cereal maybe. So I just know there's lots of stuff out there, but that was another thing I thought of. And it's like, I'm not going to blame somebody for it. It was just, that was her way of showing love, I guess, and my way of feeling comforted by that cake. And I don't need to do that anymore because I don't need to eat flour and sugar. And somebody this week, I wanted to say another thing, flour and sugar for a long time. And we're talking about, she still has like tiny little cravings around things, but really beating up about it, very critical. And she had talked about how much better she feels now that she doesn't eat sugar, she doesn't have all these joint pains. And it was on Thursday, and it was Thursday morning. I got out of bed. I usually have a lot of pain in my ankles. I played soccer, twisted my ankles a lot, ran, And I actually felt that way. I felt like when I got out of bed, I don't feel any pain right now. And so by talking to her, it really highlighted it. And so at some point you're going to start to feel this where you don't have as much inflammation in your body. And I think Jess, he talked about that in one of his videos this week. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I just wanted to bring that up to you. Okay, so now I have a whole bunch of stuff to go over. And so I wanted to kind of talk now about, this is what we're going to cover. Sorry for the noise. We went over our homework. We went over a few new thoughts. We went over questioning, and now I want to have an opportunity to coach you guys. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is for you to start thinking about this as being the last time you're ever going to lose weight. That's why we have what we call a lifestyle protocol. If you were to think about living on the foods you're living on for the rest of your life, is it something that would be manageable for you? And in the beginning, for the first couple of weeks, you need to be stricter than you would be in the future. But that's what you want to start to think about, is just to slow down and realize that this will be the last time you ever lose weight. And so when you think about it that way, this is the last time, think about how much more grace you're going to have for yourself, or you do have for yourself, because it will take as long as it takes. And I know we all want to just do something really fast and easy, but there's nothing like that that's out there. And it's just food we're eating, and to think of food as fuel for our bodies and to take care of our bodies. And then everything else are the thoughts we have around the food we eat. So I want us all to start talking or thinking about it in that manner. Is there anybody that would like to be coached on what's happened this week, or a thought that's come up over and over, or a circumstance where, I don't know. I'll give you a couple minutes to volunteer or not volunteer. Okay, so we'll move on. No coaching happening now, but I wanted to go through the model again. So what we've been talking about is called the model, and that is a new way of changing how we think. And so I kind of went over this a little bit before, but the model is a circumstance, and the circumstance is a neutral situation or event. A lot of times we don't feel like it's neutral, but it is neutral. And if we think about it in the simplest terms of a circumstance, then we shouldn't have a charge from it. We shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And there was one of the very first lessons that I had, which was about a woman going to visit her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law made spaghetti for dinner. And the woman was going to give her husband an ultimatum because she was so upset about going to her mother-in-law's house and eating spaghetti. And so it was like this, so much information coming, and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to think or feel or how to handle this. But it was just that the mother-in-law made spaghetti, and the daughter-in-law, who was on a diet, and I don't know if the mother-in-law knew that or not, made it mean all these things. But the mother-in-law was Italian, and she knew her son's favorite food was spaghetti, so she made spaghetti. And so by going through this process of the model, we were able to kind of boil it down and make it much simpler, so the daughter-in-law could see it in those terms and not think that she had to divorce her husband or give him an ultimatum never to visit the mother again because of spaghetti. So that's the power of thinking about our thoughts. So again, this is the circumstance. And then from there, we look at a thought about that circumstance, that what our brain is making it mean, whatever happened. And it's just our brain. And we have lots of thoughts, and we can change thoughts at any time. But when we have a thought, it leads to a feeling. And that feeling is how we feel when we have that thought. And so at some point we'll get back to maybe Kim, because she's feeling angry at herself. And so that's a feeling she has about herself. And then the next thing to think about when you have a feeling is, when you feel this way, what are the actions that you take? And take or not take. So then you can start to think about, here are all the actions I'm taking or not taking, and then the results that are happening from the actions we're taking or not taking. And so this is the next thing that you do with your thought download, is you take one thing that you wrote down on a daily basis, and you work through that in this model. And it's kind of hard to do in the beginning, because it's like, what am I doing here? I don't understand this. But you start to make the circumstance very neutral. That as a child, I ate cake for breakfast. And then my thought was, that I'm addicted to sugar, or this is how I feel loved. The feeling would be loved. And the action would be, I don't know, I was wigged out on sugar. The results were, I was a chubby child. You kind of take it that way. And I'm just using that as an example. You don't have to go into your past to look at this. But then from there, this is called an unintentional model, because this is what's happening, the reactions we're having. And then you can go to what's called an intentional model, where you decide the circumstance is the same, but then you want to either think, feel, act, or have a different result. And you can work on any of these lines, start with any of these lines, and then work your way up. So that if I ate cake for breakfast and I want my result to be that I didn't crave cake, my feeling would be that I feel empowered, or I feel that I love myself, that loving of myself, that I don't have to eat that cake. That's kind of how you work it through. And maybe that's not the best example. But this is the power that we have in our brain, is we can change our thoughts at any time. And then that changes our entire life. And when I first learned this, it took me a long time to understand it. And I fought it just because I didn't think it could be that simple. And I didn't think that my thoughts created my feelings, because I was very reactionary to things around me. So I thought that things were just happening outside of me. And then I had no control over my thoughts or feelings. And then a lot of time the results I had were negative, because I didn't take action on things, because I felt like everything was out of my control. So that's just kind of an example of how to look at it differently. Sorry, that's my dog whining, if you can hear that. She wants to be up here and I don't want her up here. So you're in control, and you can change, like I said, those thoughts anytime. And I was frustrated that it took me so long to change the way that I was thinking about it, because it's much simpler than we think. Even if we don't believe it all the way, we can start to have thoughts that are maybe in the middle. And I'll get to that in a minute to show you what that's like. So learning to love ourselves, that's the most important thing, and have our backs. And Brenda kind of talked about that, because we start to catch our brain when it's starting in on us, and say, hey, stop it. Like if you were around a small child who was being bullied by another child, you would take that child's side and you would say to the bully, go away, leave this child alone. And that's your job with your brain all the time, is to say, hey, wait a minute. No, you can't talk to me like that. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it that way, because you're like, wait a minute. There's only one person in here, right? But there are different parts of your brain. And for you to say that to the subconscious mind, to say, or the lizard brain, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to think that way anymore. That's using your prefrontal cortex. This is the planning, the thinking. That part of your brain is what you have to use, and spend more time in this part instead of the subconscious part. And it was kind of interesting. Again, I was listening to Mel Robbins, and she was saying with COVID, and she's a psychologist. This is what she studies as a brain. She's had a lot of really amazing things happen in her career, and ups and downs. But she was saying with COVID, we kind of all feel like we're on a little bit of a thought overload. And the reason is because right now we're having to think and worry about just like something simple, like I'm going to go to the grocery store. Normally that would then be the subconscious brain would just, okay, we know how to get to the store. Here's the list. We know how to buy the stuff. But now we have to think, wait a minute. Okay, do I have my mask? Do I need to wear my mask? Are these people going to be afraid of me because of COVID? Am I getting too close to people? Am I going down the aisles the right way? Because some of them have these arrows in them and you have to be in a certain row, and then people kind of freak out. If you're in the same aisle as them, they want you to be away from them. And then when you're standing in the grocery line, now you have these like little places you have to stand. So even the most simple things become very complicated, and we can't just go into that subconscious way of going. We have to keep using the prefrontal cortex. So it gets a little overloaded. And so that makes sense to me. And it's the same thing when you start any new program or any new way of thinking, that you have to keep coming back to this part of your brain instead of just letting your brain automatically go. So, like if you got braces on your teeth and you've always brushed your teeth and it's just been something you had to think about. Now you have braces, you have to start thinking about, am I getting in between them all? All the things you would need to think about. So just that's what's happening, what's different. And so for the rest of your life, and it'll get easier as you're doing this, you just need to constantly have yourself back, be on your side. And that if you're looking for the easy way out, it will never, ever happen, because your brain wants to go back in that cave and protect itself and not do anything else. So when Jess was talking about the new magic diet, the new magic pill, when we're talking about weight loss, maybe if I go to that gym that's really expensive, maybe if I hire a one-on-one coach, what I'm teaching you here, there are people out there that charge $5,000 per person to teach you this exact same stuff, do the exact same things, maybe a little bit different, but I've gone on consults with them just to kind of find out what it is the program is about. And it's $5,000. And I guess when you put a dollar value on something and it's very high, then that's your motivation. And so that's the difference. And there are lots of people out there that will charge that. So just know it's not about something outside of yourself. It's what's inside yourself. And to go back to the brain, our brain is always over dramatizing everything. It's like our brain is CNN. And for 24 hours a day, it needs to come up with these crazy headlines. And so I want you to think about when we first heard about COVID, everybody was afraid because we didn't know what was going on. We weren't sure how many people were going to die. And I know somebody that's running a business, and that this person has a very successful business, and they have 15 staff members, and this person told their staff that 200 million people were going to die in America from COVID. And there's only 366 million people in America. So can you imagine how those people reacted? They scattered. And do you think they have respect for this person anymore? Because that person just was like so afraid and in their lizard brain, terrified, and wanted to talk about that. So just know that's what our brain is doing all the time. And we have to kind of stop it, because we could do that too. We could say these crazy things. And the better way to look at it is, yes, things have happened with COVID, and unfortunately people have died, but there's a lot of amazing things that came out of this time. How many people were able to slow down their lives a little bit and spend time on stuff like this and start to think inside to how to be different. And the numbers aren't nearly what we thought they were. So that's just trying to give you some examples so you can kind of understand that. That's what your brain's constantly doing, constantly trying to do. And it wants us, just to go in that cave, eat potato chips, and never work out again. So So when you hear those bad thoughts, like Brenda was talking about, just realize, hey, that's the bully in there. I want to do something different with my life now. I want to lose weight. I want to care for myself. And I want to lose weight and take care of myself no matter how long it takes. Because I have a program, I know what I need to do. The food is just one part of it, and the brain is the rest of it. And somewhere along the line, we stopped believing in ourselves and we started believing all the things the head was saying to us. And so that's all we need to do is realize there is no magic bullet. There is no magic pill. The workouts will make us stronger. The food is here to nourish our bodies. And we don't need food to reward ourselves anymore. There's so many other ways that we can reward ourselves than eating for every single celebration, for every single thing to make ourselves feel better. So I'm sorry to say that the answer to your weight and exercise plan is not out there. It's the good news and bad news, because it means that all the power and control you have already inside you. And if we ask those better questions of our brain today, what's the best thing I can do to help me lose weight? It will start to go out and find those answers for you. But we've just never been asking it good questions. We've been beating ourselves up and saying, why do I keep cheating on my diet? Why do I feel terrible and not want to work out? Why don't I look better? You know, those are the types of questions which our brain is then like trying to justify it because that's its job. It's trying to say, well, yeah, you don't look any better because, you know, I mean, it's always looking for the answers. And when you feed it negative questions, it's going to give you negative answers back. And so that's something to think about is, you know, what is the most powerful questions I can ask my brain to help me? Okay, let me see what else. And so there's a homework, there's a lot of questions again, because some really good questions to ask yourself as well is, what do you think about you? What are your thoughts about your actions? Because you can think thoughts about yourself, and then you can think different thoughts about your actions, because Brenda ate a bar, but she didn't eat all the other things she wanted to. And so she can be proud of herself for the action that she took because she didn't overreact and go out and do a bunch of bad stuff. But it's two things: to start thinking the thoughts about yourself, and then think about the thoughts about your actions that you're taking, because they're separate. You're not your actions. You are just the person inside here. And the things you do, you can forgive yourself if they're from the past, and you can start to redefine yourself differently for the future. Okay, and then, so this is a good example, and I want you to think about it this way, so you can kind of get an idea about thoughts. So let's say there are three people. Here's three people, and they all have thoughts and opinions about each other. Let's say two of those three people are husband and wife, and that they are happily married. The wife thinks her husband is smart, good with their kids, and great with money. The third person in that relationship is the ex-wife. She thinks her ex-husband is terrible with finances, a terrible father, and a real dummy. So how is it possible that there can be a wife and an ex-wife and they have totally different opinions and see the same person in different lights? It's not possible unless you start to think about it, because it's only the thoughts that the wife has and the ex-wife have about the husband and the ex-husband that are different. So if you think about it, it's pretty amazing, because then you can start to see the freedom in your thoughts. Because no matter what, you can look at the bad or you can look at the good in yourself and in other people. And so this is the same process that you'll start to use with yourself, is that you get to believe any thought you want about yourself. And you can start to slowly think better thoughts about yourself until you get to where you really can believe in yourself. So for myself, I believe that I'm smart and amazing, that I love myself, I'm thin and healthy and at peace, and that I want to help 1 million people feel better about themselves. That's what I want. I have an amazing relationship with my spouse, my children, my grandchildren, friends, and family. And I've spent years beating myself up, not measuring up to what I thought that I should do. And I've stopped this, and I don't want to be abusive to myself anymore. And I've stopped believing that I'm a bad person. So that's what you can do for yourself. If you spend time in your thoughts and you think that you're mad at yourself or disappointed in yourself or sad, you need to start looking inside your brain at those thoughts and think different thoughts about them. So let's say you're trying to lose weight. You put yourself on a lifestyle plan that you want to follow for the rest of your life, and you keep eating flour and sugar and going off your plan. And these are the actions. So if we're talking about something like that, kind of the before and after. So here's us now. Going off of our plan, we feel hate, shame, and sad. That's how we feel about ourselves right now. And in the future, we want to love ourselves and be proud. And so as you can see, there's all these thoughts in between that you can start to believe about yourself. Because if you can't believe that you're proud of yourself and you love yourself, you can start to believe, hey, I have a body. That's a neutral thought we have. So we can start to believe that thought instead of feeling these feelings about our body and all the things that we say that lead to these feelings. And then when we stay with this for a while, we can start to say, hey, I can stay on this plan and I can exercise. And then start to believe I have the tools I need now to change the way that I think and feel. And I'm strong and I know myself over time. And so that's how you go from where you are now to the future self. And these are bridge thoughts. These are thoughts that aren't a jump. If you start to say these things over here to yourself and you can't believe them yet, then you can start with more neutral thoughts to move yourself along. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, it just goes back to just being critical of yourself. Instead of being so critical, what if we started to be curious? Like, I'm curious, why did I eat that cake? And just ask those kinds of questions of your brain, and it will probably start to tell you. But again, if we're not doing the thought downloads, we don't have any way of getting in touch with our thoughts. And so those questions won't be as easy to answer. But if you start doing the thought downloads and you start doing a model, then over time you will get answers if you come from curiosity. If you say, you idiot, why did you do that? Your brain's going to shut down. It's not going to answer. It doesn't want that. It doesn't want to have you judging it. So you can, if you just start to be curious, that's the best way to start it. And then some other thoughts to kind of go back from the past, because in coaching, the belief is you don't need to go back and fix from the time you remember when you're 3 forward. You just don't. If you want that, then it's best to go to a psychologist and spend time talking about it, or a psychiatrist. But coaching is changing right now, immediately, our thoughts, which will then change things. But the other part is that we have to start thinking back about how we got here. And so some good questions are, what are the 5 best things that happened to you in your past? And then what are the 5 worst things that happened to you in your past? And when you start to write those things down, it'll reveal to you 100% why you think and feel the way you do. Because you are an innocent child. You're 100% lovable and worthy no matter what. And that's just because we're children of God, and that's it. I mean, that's just how we were born, and that's our entire life. We are worthy. We are lovable. We're children of God. That's my belief. And if you start to think that about yourself, that I'm worthy right now, I'm lovable, it will make a big difference. Okay. And then the other thing to start thinking about is moving forward and looking in the future and writing a statement about yourself. You know, what does the future look like for you? What do you want to be doing in the future? And you guys are pretty young. I mean, I make a 25-year plan. So that's like, I have crazy things I want to do, but I know I have 25 years to do it. So it's not like 5 minutes from now or a year from now, because we overestimate what we can get done in a year and we underestimate what we can get done in 5 years. And so if you just have this overall plan of where you want to head and you have it posted someplace and you read it, it's going to make a difference. And so here's a story. This was probably, I was probably maybe 35. And I wrote down, I think I was in some kind of a class, and so they wanted you to do a eulogy. And so I wrote down that by the time I died, I wanted to help 1,000 people. And so I put that away somewhere and didn't read it again. And then when I was a few years older than that, we decided to sponsor a village in Africa, my husband and I, that was terrible. It was called Nkomesha Village, and it was, I can't remember the name, Zambia. And we decided to sponsor a village there because their life expectancy was 35 years, because that country was just annihilated by the AIDS epidemic. And so we decided that we were going to commit to this. It was a 5-year program. There were lots of different things that they helped out with. And when we went, there were probably 10 of us from the Portland, Vancouver area where we used to live. We went over to visit our villages, and some people's villages were like 100 people. My village had like 700 people in it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, we're each giving the same amount of money. How is my money going to be spread amongst all these people? I have so many more. I felt like this big burden of responsibility. And then at the end of 4 years, I went back and took my husband just to kind of see what had happened. And they, as a village, decided what to do with the money and how they would spend it. And so they put in another well. And then there was some things that farming that was taught to them, and that was all done by World Vision. They oversaw the whole program. Well, when we went back at year 5, so after that, 1 year later, there were over 1,000 people in that village. And so then at some point we were moving, I found that piece of paper and read it and went, oh my gosh, it seemed like 1,000 people was so crazy that I would be able to help. And I did it. And it wasn't effort that I took every day. It just happened. And so those are the types of things that you need to think about when you start writing down your intentions and where you want to go. That kind of stuff will happen to you. And the more that you read it and think about it, the sooner it's going to happen. So it's like, it could be a new career. It could be competing in some kind of an event. It could be a relationship. Those are the types of things that you want to start writing down and thinking about. And then you're creating it for your future. When we think about creating our future, most of us look to our past to create our future. And that's not where you want to go, because you don't want to repeat what's happened in the past. You want to think about growing as a person and believing more in yourself. And so most people don't know that, because they just think, well, I'll just build upon what I've done. But that's not the best place to go. The best place to go is to dream about all the things that you have on your heart that you want to do, because it's possible to make it happen. And even if you say, I don't know, I want to do an Ironman, and you fall short, you can always do another Ironman, or you did your best to try to compete in that. And there's a gentleman that I know that I used to be a member of a triathlon club in Vancouver. And so that's what everybody did, was they competed in triathlons. And this gentleman wanted to do an Ironman, and he was probably in his 60s. And so he was out riding his bike, and a bull charged him on his bike, and he crashed, and he had to have lots of surgeries, but he also had to have a valve in his heart replaced. And so he got back on the bike, in the future, after he recovered, and then he kept training, and he tried 3 times to complete an Ironman, and he never did it. And by that time he was like 67 years old, but he gave it his all, and he had peace about that. And so even though these things might happen to us, we can still try and go forward and believe it's going to happen for us. Okay. And again, it goes back to the relationship you have with yourself. And if you have a very negative opinion of yourself, you need to start being amazed and know how wonderful you are for what you've accomplished in your life. So when you're defining yourself in the future, you need to allow yourself to be creative, decide what your outcome will be. And then this all has to do with weight loss, because it's the things that we haven't defined about ourselves that are going to get us to the goals that we want. It's not the food and it's not the exercise that's going to get us there. It's our minds that are going to get us there. Even if you, I wrote down, even if you were fired from a job because you had stolen from the business and were caught, you don't need to define yourself as a thief, because you can decide, I will never do that again. And then you can forgive yourself and you can move forward. Just like, yeah, okay. So then the last thing I want to talk about was what Brenda brought up, and that was the urges. And so with our food, what we need to start to do is respond to our desire for food with finding out what's behind the urge. And it's not even that we have to say, you know, I'm craving pizza and I don't want to eat it, but it's just feeling that urge and allowing that urge in your body. And that just means not running away from it, not saying, I'm not going to feel that way, but just like, what does it feel like when I crave that pizza? I feel it in my throat. I feel it in my stomach. I'm hungry. You just have to start to let that urge come into you. An urge usually lasts between 60 and 90 seconds, and then it's gone. And I think we talked about this last week, that 100 urges you'll totally not crave that food anymore, and you'll be able to allow urges. But if you can just keep track of the first 20 urges, you're going to make a huge difference in your thoughts and feelings about the food. Because right away when we have an urge, our brain is freaking out like, oh, we have this thing happening, we have to respond to it. And we don't have to respond to it. We just have to allow it, because that's what we haven't done. We've usually pushed it away. With an urge, we've either responded to it and eaten whatever it was, or we've tried to figure out something else to do to push it away, instead of just saying, okay, I feel the urge for pizza, and this is how it feels, and then let it go. And you can even say to yourself, if I still have this urge, then I can put it on my meal plan for tomorrow, and I can just have a piece of pizza. It's okay. It's the last time you're ever going to lose weight, so you can take it off as slowly as you want, and you can you can learn more about yourself so that it doesn't become these crazy cravings. And then what is the process of allowing urge for you? I mean, you have to kind of think about that, because it might be different for you than it is for somebody else. And when you allow that urge to go, what does it feel like? How do your feelings different in your body? And this is on your homework, so you don't have to worry about that. And then what is the skill you need to develop to feel that instead of eating? So maybe it is needing a hug from somebody. Maybe when you feel that way, that urge, there's some other thing that you need. And just trying to spend time and asking that question of yourself. And then once you start to master this with food, you can use this in all other areas of your life, and it makes a huge difference. Okay. Questions? That was a lot of information. Oh, look at the baby. I haven't heard from you, Kayla. Come on. Unmute yourself. Let's hear ya. No, not happening. Oh, there we go. Hi. Oh. All right. What's going on? We didn't hear from you in the beginning.
Not much.
Not much. How was this week for you?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kayla's lost 110 pounds in the past year.
How many?
110.
110 pounds in the past year.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So you've had to work through some food stuff to get there, for sure.
It was pretty easy for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any questions about what we covered today?
I don't.
Okay.
Really, Michael.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Bye. You're so cute. Hey, Kim, you want to try to work on your way of losing weight?
Okay.
Okay. You do?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So for you, you said that you've lost weight. How many pounds have you lost?
I'm 3 pounds.
3 pounds in 1 week. Is that right?
Probably 2 weeks.
Okay.
I lose the weight during the week, and then when my husband comes home on the weekends, we go out to eat, and I gain it back. I'm the yo-yo.
You're the yo-yo. Okay.
So I'm trying to work on the weekends to not gain that weight back.
Okay. Okay. And so what are your thoughts about losing those 3 pounds?
Oh, I feel like I'm started in the right direction. The scale's going in the right direction, not the other way. So
Okay.
that's a good feeling.
Okay. But let's talk about the other part. Your husband comes home. Your thought is your husband comes home and you go out to eat.
Yep, that's what we do. And I said, we need a new hobby. Serious. Like we need to go for a bike ride, right?
Okay.
But we like to eat out.
Okay. And where do you go to eat?
All over. I mean, well, we like to go up to Sandpoint. We have favorite restaurants up there. We like the White House Grill. He likes, Sweet Lou's, Icart's in Sandpoint. He really likes Ivano's, and that's Italian food. And they give you like freshly baked bread, like sourdough bread with butter. And so we usually eat 2 loaves before we actually even have dinner. So,
okay.
And so I feel kind of like I'm a bummer if I was to go and to bring my own food, like my so-called diet food. Then I feel like I'm ruining the so-called date or whatever.
Oh, okay. Because it's not about this time with your husband. It's about the food. Is that right?
Both. I mean, we do like to eat out, and then it is, our time together.
Okay. Okay. And so it's your time together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have a lot of thoughts about 3 pounds in 2 weeks. So those thoughts are, it's your time together with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
You're started in the right direction. Your husband comes home and you go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And which is strongest there? What's your strongest thought about 3 pounds? When you think about 3 pounds in 2 weeks, but then everything you listed was, well, you said you're starting in the right direction, but then everything you're saying it's not.
Well, I almost feel worried sometimes when he comes home. It's like, dang it, I don't want to like put all this weight back on and then start Monday out the 3 pounds up.
Okay. So worried
Mm-hmm.
about the eating out. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. So when the feeling is worried, what are some of the actions you take when you feel
I
worried?
try to tell him, let's cook at home.
Okay.
Let's just don't go out. We'll go buy things and we'll eat at home.
Okay. Okay. And what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that, but we just had our 32nd anniversary. So he's like, oh, I want to go to Ivano's because he really likes to go there. And so we haven't done that yet because different things have come up so that we haven't made it. So, so this weekend it's like, oh dear, but he knows I'm trying to lose weight. He needs to lose weight too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I can just keep telling, let's just eat at home.
Okay.
Do you know how we use food? It's a celebration comes with eating.
Right. Yeah. So we're saying that's a celebration.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And what is, so if you, when you're worried, you say, let's eat at home, and then you think about the celebration. What's the result from being worried?
I'm trying to figure out what I should do so that he doesn't feel disappointed that I don't want to go out to eat.
Okay. And so what is the reason behind that? Because you think that he will be disappointed if you don't go out to eat.
I do feel like he'll be disappointed because that's something that he really likes to do.
Okay. And he does that just when he's home?
He eats out all the time. I mean, he
Oh,
works
okay.
out of town, so he eats out during the week. And then when he comes home on the weekends, it's kind of like, oh, let's go out to eat. Like I said, it's a hobby.
Okay. Yeah. And so do you see that you're saying you need to figure out what you're going to do instead and find a different hobby, but your husband eats out all the time as well.
Mhm.
So your thought about your husband is he wants to eat out all the time and that you need to go.
Because he'll be disappointed if I say, no, let's don't go.
Will he?
Not all of the time, but he does, he keeps talking about, let's go to Ivano's in Sandpoint. It's really nice there. And I do, of course, like to go there,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like I'm constantly sabotaging myself by going out to eat.
Yes.
And so, yes, I could bring my own food, but then I don't want him to think, oh, well, this is really lame. I'm ordering dinner and you've got your chicken and broccoli.
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's interesting how much time you're spending in his head, and you have no control over him and his thoughts or feelings, and they might not even be that at all.
But I'm a people pleaser, and I would hate to disappoint him.
Yes, a people
I
pleaser.
spend a lot of time, even though possibly he wouldn't be disappointed, and he knows I need to lose weight. He needs to lose weight too, and I try not to say too much about that. I just, try to work on myself and get my quarantine weight off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have no control over somebody over there.
No.
Doesn't matter what they need or want. And if you do this for yourself, you're an example for other people.
Right. Little Miss Goody Two Shoes.
And people pleasing is really kind of a difficult problem.
It is. It is a problem.
Because it's manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
And go ahead.
So how do you mean it's manipulative?
Because you're trying to figure out the actions you should take to please another person, and you have no idea what that is. And you're not being honest because you're saying it's your husband that's causing you to do this, and you're trying to please him when I'm not sure, but most men would rather eat at home, and they like a home cooked meal, especially if they eat out all week.
Mm-hmm.
And could it be a thought of Kim has worked hard all week? I just want to take her out to dinner. Could that be the thought?
Kim doesn't hardly ever. I usually cook one day a week when I cook enough so that I don't have to cook.
Well, he doesn't know that. I mean,
well, right. It could be.
right. But to say that you've lost 3 pounds in 2 weeks, what is another thought you could have about losing 3 pounds in 2 weeks?
What do you mean? Like, what's another thought?
What's a better thought? What's a more positive thought than my husband comes home and we're going to go out to eat and I'm going to gain weight and I'm going to have problems? It's because of him coming home. What is a more positive thought about you've lost 3 pounds in 2 weeks, and think about moving ahead, moving forward, how you're going to get through this?
Okay. So like problem solving, like what should I do? Is that what you mean?
Just a positive thought about I lost 3 pounds in 2 weeks and I want to continue this pattern. So what is a more positive thought I can have than my husband's going to come home and we're going to go out to eat?
Trying to figure out how to work around that.
Okay. What does that look like to work around it?
Just say, I've lost 3 pounds. I don't want to put it back on. How about we don't go out to eat this weekend and let's just stay home?
Okay. And so what kind of thought do you have to have to have that conversation with him? What do you need to be thinking about?
What he's gonna say.
No, not about him. It's about you.
Oh,
It's your thought.
this is so foreign. I guess just having a conversation with him and just say, look, this is what I would really like to do.
Okay. And so could you have a thought about, I want to lose another 3 pounds in 2 weeks?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. So I want to lose 3 more pounds. Okay. And then, so you want to lose 3 more pounds in 2 weeks. So if you want to lose 3 more pounds in 2 weeks and you're excited about thinking about that, what would your feeling be about losing 3 more pounds in 2 weeks? How would you feel if you lost that?
Oh, I would feel really great if I could lose another 3 pounds. I actually want to lose more than that, but so yeah.
Okay. But what is a feeling in your body? And great isn't a feeling. It'd be accomplished or successful.
Oh, yes. Yes, accomplished. I feel like I'm meeting a goal. I'm finally getting somewhere where I want to be.
Okay.
Instead of feeling so disappointed and constantly going backwards.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And that's what people pleasers do, is they don't accomplish things for themselves because they're so worried about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you start to feel accomplished, then what would be the actions that you would take? And you've already said them. If you felt accomplished, what would be your actions that you would take?
Oh, like not go out to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Conversation with your husband.
Yeah.
Maybe find something else that he would enjoy to do that doesn't involve food.
Yes, that's a great idea. Yeah. We're older, we like to eat.
Right. And I don't know what that is, and I shouldn't be putting words in your mouth, but those are the types of things that you probably want to do is have a conversation and be excited and say, hey, look I've lost 3 pounds. I want to lose 3 more pounds. So this is what I want to do this weekend. Maybe if you planned something that would be different, and it might not be fun at all. It might be a bummer.
Uh-huh.
And what would be the result if you had that conversation with your husband and you felt accomplished? What would be the result you would get, you think?
I wouldn't gain the 3 pounds back over the weekend because, it's the 4th of July. So what do? Make fruit pizza, right?
Okay.
No, I'm joking. No.
I don't know what fruit pizza is. Yeah. So do you see that by thinking about having a thought about losing 3 more pounds, that it changes the way you feel about yourself and that you're going to take different actions? Do you see that?
Yes, I need to start finding some solutions to this eating out. And I've known this, and that's, one way I have packed down all this weight is just restaurant food.
Yeah. Yeah. And restaurants do have salads. So if you had to go there, they do have salads, and you do not have to eat the bread.
Right. I don't.
Right. Yeah. But if you're not going to put it on your husband because this is you. Mm-hmm. But as you lose that weight, if you would like him to lose weight, that's more likely that maybe he'll look at you and think you know what you're doing. Because it's me all the time telling my husband he needs to lose weight too. But
yeah,
why do I keep telling him everything he needs to do when I need to prove it to myself and then not worry about what I say to him because the results are going to show other people what you want. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I know we went over, and I really appreciate you doing this and kind of being the guinea pig just so everybody can see. Mm-hmm. And this is what you need to be doing with yourself all the time. Mm-hmm. All of us. That's all. Every day I do this. I could do it a million times a day because I have so many thoughts. But anyways, okay. So I have homework that I will send to Jess. I don't think I can't remember how to do that. I'll just send it to you, Jess, sorry. And then this is the 4th of July weekend, and that means maybe you might have one more day with family. It's a good opportunity to just kind of take some breaths and think about the things that might get you triggered if you're around family, more food. And then we'll be back next Tuesday. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.